Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to talk about Joe Biden and gun control. And very specifically, I want to talk about how Joe Biden got it perfectly right when it comes to gun control. And of course, I'm not talking about current Uncle Joe. I'm talking about pre-cognitive decline Biden. Back in, I believe it was 1985. I want to read you a quote here from a younger Joe Biden, like I said, pre-cognitive decline. "I have never believed that additional gun control or federal registration of guns would reduce crime," Biden said on the floor of the Senate in July 1985, so it was 1985. "I am convinced that a criminal who wants a firearm can get one through illegal, untraceable, unregistered sources with or without gun control." Wow, how more correct could he possibly be on gun control? You cannot stop crime by outlawing the tools that some criminals choose to use. They'll just find other tools or they'll get those tools illegally. And one thing the left has been saying all week on the news is there's 120 guns for every 100 people in the United States. We have to ban guns. Do you really think you're going to be able to get rid of that many guns? Or do you really think you would just push guns away from legal law-abiding citizens and into the hands of the criminals on the black market? Because those guns aren't going to mysteriously vanish when you keep law-abiding citizens from owning guns. So I actually agree with Biden on gun control completely. You can't stop crime through gun control. And that's the number one thing they use to try to invalidate the Second Amendment. Oh, it's causing a lot of crime. Children are being killed, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it only happens in this country, even though it doesn't just happen in this country. It just so happens it happens more often through guns because that's the most common tool. In other countries, it happens more often than it happens here, except there they use machetes. And in some countries, AK-47s. Depends on where you're at in the world. But children are pretty much safer here than they are in most countries. Period. But they use crime to try to say, we need more gun control. We don't need gun control. What we need is less criminals. At least less criminals on the street. And the only way to do that is two ways. One, lock up criminals that are dangerous and keep them locked up instead of concentrating on low-level offenders that are more profitable for the for-profit prison systems because they don't need as much care or as much supervision or etc. Get rid of that whole system, that whole for-profit prison system, get rid of it. Have you ever wondered why they can build more prisons easily with little resistance whatsoever from government than they can mental health facilities? Because there's big money in one, and it definitely doesn't need to be that way. So get rid of locking up, low-level drug offenders, etc., because they're high profit, low maintenance, and lock up bad guys for good. If they don't get out ever, then they were never safe for society. That's the way it is. If you're not rehabilitated, you don't get out. If you get out and you commit another crime, you don't go back in and get right back out again. You go back and you stay for a longer time. Make criminals know, hey, I'm not just going to be tossed back out on the streets. Right now, we are being really lax on criminals. Hardcore, full-time criminals are allowed to escape the system because the system wants to seem woke. Oh, we have to be considerate of their circumstances and why they committed the crime. Yes, you do. You take that into account when you're trying to rehabilitate them or prevent them from becoming criminals in the first place. But when it comes to sentencing for the crimes they committed, you just take the crimes they committed into account and you actually lock them up if they're a danger. That's one of the things we need to do. Actually start locking criminals up. Let criminals know this isn't going to be a 5-day trip to the county jail and then probation for 6 months so I can get back out and keep doing the crimes I was doing. The other thing we need to do is stop making so many criminals. That would be the best thing we could possibly do. If we started dealing with kids young, kids that have troubled home lives, etc., if the public school system, the public health system, etc., was there for kids that need it, we would have a lot less criminals. One of the guys on CNN, I think it was either CNN or Fox the other day, said something about he's finding it funny that all these politicians that are saying we need to crack down on crime, we need to do something about these crime rates, these higher crime rates, he says. But while they were in power, they closed down after-school programs that definitely reduced crime, library outreach programs to lower-income communities that definitely stopped crime and helped to decrease crime, other mental health programs through schools, etc., that helped make less criminals and reduce crime. They were defunding those things and canceling them all the time, Republican and Democrat. But now they're like, oh, we got to do something about crime. They don't care about crime. They know the things that reduce crime. They don't want to do them. They just want to take the guns away from citizens so that they aren't armed, so that they can't fight back. That's period. That might sound paranoid or crazy, but that's really the whole thing. When you look at ancient times, the king had to disarm the peasants because there were 1 million of them and one of him, and he had a couple hundred guards. If 1 million peasants stormed the castle, he was dead. So he had to make sure they weren't armed. And that's what the billionaires are doing nowadays. They're like, we own everything. We're 1% of the population, and we own pretty much everything now. Eventually, people are going to say, hey, you only have everything because we let you take it, and we built the shit for you that you needed to get it. And they're done for. That's why they want the population disarmed. And the government serves solely at the whim of the ultra wealthy and the corporations in this country. So getting back on track here, doing the things to prevent kids from becoming criminals, after school programs, psychological outreach, just basic general outreach like the YMCA, etc. Things that get kids off the streets and give them something to do while their parents are at work instead of out running the streets. Things that give kids a place to go where they can hang out with other kids and do things where they're not pressured into illegal activity or drugs. That's another thing we could do. A little side note, get rid of the war on drugs. Getting rid of the war on drugs would lower crime rates so much, you wouldn't believe it. The whole anti-drug thing is a morality play anyway, by the right to win over evangelical voters. It has nothing to do with benefiting society, period. All it does is create crime. We created the cartels, which create a lot of the crime in our country, especially down along the borders. We created those. Just like how Prohibition created the mafia, the war on drugs created the cartels and all the violence that comes with it. So we're responsible for that, or at least our policies are. So like I said, giving children the things they need and giving young adults the things they need, like education opportunities, job opportunities, etc. That stops crime, and they know it. But like I say, no one gets rich off that stuff, so they don't want to do it. But that's what we need to do. And also another thing, another little side note, when we do send people to prison, let's make it about rehabilitation. While they're there, they get trained to be a plumber, an electrician, etc. It's available to them. It's not forced on them, but it's available. Find a job skill that we have a shortage of. Like there's not enough of these people. Like we need more that can do this. We need more mechanics, whatever. Have job training available to people in prisons. If people on the outside aren't wanting to do it, might as well let the people on the inside train. That would be a good job there. Educate them. Like I said, rehabilitate them in prison. Don't punish them. And I'm not saying that prisoners should get free training while people out here don't. Those same programs to train prisoners should be open to people that are on the outside that want training. I mean, if you really want to get trained for a job, you should be able to go in and get it in this country. All you should have to do is maybe do some public service. Like I've always said, people who get out of high school, do 2 years of public service, then education is free. We need to do something to start serving the people to where we make less criminals. We need to start locking up the ones that are criminals, try to rehabilitate the ones we can, keep the ones we can't in prison indefinitely, whether they're high profit or not. There's a lot of things, like I said, we can do to stop crime, or at least lower crime. And none of it has anything to do with banning tools like firearms or removing rights from citizens. And it seems, unfortunately, Joe Biden doesn't get that today. But when he was younger and a little more with it, it seemed like he understood it perfectly. All right, everybody, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I do appreciate you coming, and I hope you come back again tomorrow. Until then, I just want to remind everyone out there to always carry and stay safe until I see you again.